welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of our flagship station, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today also joining us on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99 in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area is Birmingham Area Municipal Access. We're also in Southfield on City Cable 15 of Southfield as well. Joining us on other community television stations on Comcast Channel 10 and AT&T Channel 99 are the Media Network of Waterford on Channel 10 over there in Waterford, and then on Orion Neighborhood Television in Lake Orion, joining us live to tape at 1 o'clock in the morning and in the afternoon for their regular replay blocks during the day. You can also find us on the radio in the Birmingham, Bloomfield, and Troy area on 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, and find us online in a number of different places. On Facebook, facebook.com/Civic Center TV 15 and facebook.com/Lakes FM. You can also find us on our website at civiccentertv.com by clicking on our Watch Live link. That will be at the top of the page on your computer web browser and on the left margin in the drop-down menu on your mobile phone. You can also find us online on My Michigan TV, or MyMy, as Michigan's free streaming network with content from across the Great Lakes state by creators here in the state of Michigan. News stories, documentaries, variety shows, a lot of other things that are there as well. Learn more information by going to mymytv.com, where you can also learn more about all the places you can download the MyMyTV app on your smartphone and on your smart TV. Find all that information about all of our partnering stations, including MyMyTV and all the other television and radio stations from the Oakland County area that join us each and every day by going to our website, civiccentertv.com, and clicking on Megacast. That will take you to a link that will show you more information about our show, give you helpful links to all of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets, so you can learn more about the other programming that they do serving your hometown and other places all throughout the state of Michigan. And on that website, you can also get access to our full episodes and our interviews on demand. Again, civiccentertv.com/megacast. And then right next door to that is civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. There we have information that will be very helpful to you as we continue on through this COVID-19 pandemic, including resources from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the state of Michigan, and Oakland County, where you can find more information about the spread of COVID-19 in your area and all across the state of Michigan. More information on our vaccines, including booster shots, and presumably very soon vaccines being available for children ages 5 to 11. All that information on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Click any of those links at the top of the page to find more information at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level about COVID-19. Many of these pieces of information connect, but they can also lead you to other resources if you'd like more information on vaccines, on booster shots, on precautionary measures that are being enacted in our schools and in other places in our communities, and just how effective they are in preventing the spread of COVID-19. These are the places that you can start. And you should start. And we also have links to many municipalities here in the Oakland County area, so that if you are wondering how COVID-19 is affecting city business in your hometown, you can learn more information. If you're living in Rochester Hills, in Pontiac, in Troy, in West Bloomfield, all of those places have links on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, and they will take you directly to those municipalities' COVID-19 specific page, so you can see how it's affecting regular business in your hometown. And in addition, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we post our top stories from many great journalists across the state of Michigan each and every day. And it was a pretty big news day late yesterday and into today, and we'll begin as I mentioned earlier. Pretty soon we will very likely have COVID-19 vaccinations available for children ages 5 to 11, and because of that, Metro Detroit health departments are preparing for vaccinating kids. This is from the Detroit News. Metro Detroit health departments are developing plans to vaccinate young children against COVID-19 as they await emergency authorization for pediatric use of the vaccine from the CDC. If the FDA and the CDC both sign off, vaccines could be available in November to Michigan's 825,000 children ages 5 through 11. The Oakland County Health Division said on Wednesday that it is collaborating with local school districts on how to best roll out the doses and place preliminary orders for the vaccine following the CDC's anticipated approval. Officials in Wayne and Macomb counties said they too are anticipating providing the vaccines as soon as possible. Oakland County said it will release details on pediatric COVID-19 vaccine clinics after the CDC approves it for emergency use in younger children and issues guidelines. More than 276,000 eligible residents in Oakland County remain unvaccinated, officials note. Quote, immunizing residents who remain unvaccinated is vital to limiting the transmission of COVID-19, said Oakland County Health Division Medical Director Dr. Russell Faust in a statement. Dr. Faust continued, the more residents who get the COVID-19 vaccine, the closer we will be to slowing the pandemic to manageable levels, and closed quote. The counties are preparing plans for administering pediatric doses as Michigan on Wednesday reported another 7,867 cases of the virus and 142 deaths over 2 days, and the highest 7-day rolling average of cases since May. Governor Whitmer on Tuesday issued an executive directive to state departments and agencies to expedite the ordering and distribution of Pfizer vaccinations for children ages 5 through 11 in Michigan. The state has pre-ordered 287,700 doses of the vaccine to ensure its supply is on hand when approval is granted. According to the manufacturer, the Pfizer vaccine is more than 90% effective for the younger age group. An advisory panel of the FDA on Tuesday voted unanimously with one abstention that the vaccine's benefits in preventing COVID-19 for children 5 to 11 outweigh any potential risks. The FDA is expected to make its own decision in the coming days. The CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices is set to meet next week to consider the FDA's recommendation. In Wayne County, health officials have requested additional vaccines to be able to accommodate and administer pediatric vaccines once they are approved, said Tiffany Jackson, a spokesperson for Wayne County. Jackson said, quote, we will continue to work with schools and providers in Wayne County as a resource and a partner. We're in the process of contacting schools to offer on-site vaccination clinics. We will also continue to schedule at-home vaccination appointments as well. Andrew Cox, health officer for Macomb County's health department, said when new populations are approved by the CDC for COVID-19 vaccines, quote, we have responded by making the vaccine available to those individuals as quickly as possible, and this will be no different, and closed quote. In addition of the authorization for pediatric doses of COVID-19 for children 5 to 11 years old, we are planning on integrating operations to serve this population into health department vaccination clinics in Clinton Township and Warren, he said as well. In addition, we will continue our ongoing partnership with our pediatricians and with the Macomb Intermediate School District as well as Macomb County School Districts to pursue opportunities to make the vaccine available to this important audience as quickly and efficiently as possible. About 73.4% of Oakland County residents 12 and up have received at least one vaccine dose. That's compared with 71% in Outer Wayne County and Washtenaw counties, 62.5% in Macomb County, and 46.1% in Detroit, where vaccination rate has lagged. Overall, 63.7% of residents in the state have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccines. That article from the Detroit News linked on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Also making news yesterday, some controversy once again with the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission as the redistricting panel, which pledged openness, met in secret earlier this week in a closed session. This is from Bridge, Michigan. As opposition builds to proposed legislative maps, the state's redistricting commission on Wednesday met in private to discuss whether the districts comply with federal law. Members did so despite wide objections and repeated pledges of openness and transparency, as well as a constitutional amendment mandating that they, quote, conduct all of its business at open meetings, and closed quote. The 13-member commission created by voters in 2018 after lawmakers drew legislative boundaries for decades behind closed doors moved on Wednesday to suspend rules and discuss two memos in a closed session, one titled, quote-unquote, Voting Rights Act, and another called, quote-unquote, The History of Discrimination in the State of Michigan and Its Influence on Voting. The Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission instructed reporters to leave the meeting, blocked the room's windows with paper, and paused a live stream of the session. The private discussion followed days of criticism from African American leaders who questioned if the maps adhered to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is designed to allow minorities to elect candidates of their choosing. The redistricting panel by year's end is expected to approve legislative boundaries that will be used for the next decade. Michigan now has 17 majority-minority districts in the state legislature and 2 in the congressional delegation, but most of the commission's proposed maps only have 1 district that is over 50% majority black. Quote, I think this would allow us to freely discuss attorney-client matters with our lawyers freely and openly, where we all as a group can ask questions, said Rebecca Zatella, an independent who is serving as the chair of the commission. Although the contents of the memos are unknown to the public, Zatella told Bridge, Michigan, they were a legal opinion. 11 out of 13 commissioners voted to meet in closed session to quote-unquote discuss privileged and confidential memoranda. After the meeting, which lasted over an hour, the commission went back into session and quickly adjourned around 5:20 p.m., despite being scheduled to finish that evening at 8 p.m. The dissenting votes were cast by Republicans Aaron Wagner and Rhonda Lang, who told commissioners the issue should be publicly debated. Quote, if this commission is working in full transparency, in my opinion, let's be transparent, Lang said, and continued, I know that's probably not what most of you want to hear, end closed quote. The commission's move was criticized by both state Democratic and Republican parties. Michigan's Democratic Party Chair Lavora Barnes said the commission cannot move forward until they address, quote, what was discussed in closed session, end closed quote. Quote, what we have yet to hear is the commission debrief on the public hearings, Barnes said, and continued, instead of having an open and transparent discussion, the commission retreated behind closed doors, end close quote. The Michigan Republican Party called the private meeting, quote, a new low for the commission. Quote, Michiganders were sold on a commission that would be transparent and accountable in the creation of fair state and federal districts under the Constitution, end closed quote, said Gustavo Portela, a party spokesperson. Michigan's Open Meetings Act allows public bodies to deliberate in private under 11 circumstances, including discussion of personal matters, collective bargaining negotiations, and privileged attorney opinions. The act allows government boards to discuss pending litigation with attorneys. There is no pending litigation against the commission at this time, as well as, quote, material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute, which generally means written opinions from lawyers. Julian Pastula, the commission's general counsel, told reporters Wednesday evening she believes the commission followed the state's Open Meetings Act. When asked by Bridge, Michigan, if the panel would release all or parts of the memos, she declined. Pastula said the commission took minutes of the closed session, but they would not be made public. Edward Woods III, the commission spokesperson, told Bridge, Michigan in a text message that, quote, no business was conducted in closed session, end closed quote. He added the commission blocked the door's windows because it had received a death threat that delayed the meeting. Observers say debating a crucial issue such as minority representation in private is troublesome and of questionable legality. Quote, the public has a right to know what the legal guidance provided to the commission at taxpayer expenses is, so the public can understand how it will affect the decisions of public officials, said Steve Lydell, an attorney who worked as legal counsel to former Democratic Governor Jennifer Granholm. Quote, unwise decision and terrible precedent for the MICRC given the lack of discussion of these legal issues, end closed quote. So that full article with more details on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. And lastly, making headlines back here in Oakland County from the Detroit News. Oakland County High School has hired an explosives sniffing canine to roam the halls. While most of us see the world through our eyes, Lucy, the star member of the explosives detection canine team at Avondale High School navigates the world through her nose. The yellow Labrador Retriever's full-time job at the Oakland County High School is to detect guns and munitions brought into the school grounds or inside the school, and to look lovable and charming while doing it. On Wednesday, the school staff and Lucy's handler, Lisa Zhang, showed off something's going on over here. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of a technical issue. On Wednesday, the school staff and Lucy's handler, Lisa Zhang, showed off the retriever's skills inside the high school's auxiliary gym. 2 sticks of dynamite were hidden inside one of 8 metal buckets on a spinning scent wheel. Zhang gave the wheel a spin and asked Lucy to begin her search among the 7 empty buckets and one with hidden munitions. Lucy moved to each bucket, dunking her head deep inside, giving it a long sniff, and moving on until she found her target in the 4th bucket. And then down she sat, her signal to her human that she found the munitions. Avondale High School is the first in Michigan to add a full-time explosives detection canine team to its security staff, according to the district and the training company. If Lucy finds her target, she signals her handler. So far this school year, that has yet to happen. Greg Gredis, the Elite Detection K9 president and CEO, said the program is intended to reduce school violence by deterring students from bringing weapons to school. Lucy is there to detect and warn officials of invisible threats of hidden firearms or explosives, said Gredis. Lucy is trained in 9 major categories of explosives, from black powder and bullets to dynamite to C4 and TNT. The company has a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives license to use live explosives during her training, which is conducted after school hours. On Wednesday, Rick Hitu, Elite Detection Canine Master Trainer, spoke to a group of students eating lunch near Lucy's demonstration for the media. Once kids are in class, Lucy makes the rounds down hallways, along lockers, and sticks her head into locker rooms and bathrooms. She does not need to search every person near her, officials say, because her sense of smell is extremely sensitive. Having a trained dog at school keeps students safe so they can focus on learning, says Dr. James Schwartz, the superintendent of the school district. The decision to have a dog on staff at the school stems from a partnership between Elite Detection Canine and the high school, which started nearly 2 years ago, said Dr. Schwartz, during which the nonprofit brought puppies it was raising for training to the high school for socialization with students. Schwartz said the high school had not had a past incident of firearms or ammunitions found in the school, and so far, Lucy has not detected any contraband around campus. Quote, "The students know the dog is an expert in sensing explosive material. It acts as a preventative," Schwartz said, continuing on. "It provides peace of mind. That is where the community has embraced it," end closed quote. The district has a 1-year contract for Lucy and pays around $35,000 for her services. The actual cost of training a dog for a year is around $80,000. However, that full article from the Detroit News on our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We have a great show ahead of you today. Joining us next at 10:20, Dr. Varun Vohra will join us from the Michigan Poison Center. On the show at 10:40, a couple of people from Oakland University. Professor Chris Kobus will join us, as well as Bianca Bryant, Assistant Director of Outreach and Retention at Oakland University. We'll continue on at Oakland University in the 11 o'clock hour. I'll speak with their head basketball coach, Greg Kampe. At 11:20, Lydia Wileden will join me, a U of M Ph.D. candidate and DMACS Research Associate, and then at 11:40 I'll be joined by Jamie Brooke from the Birmingham Shopping District. That is all coming up next. You are watching and listening to the Megacast.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light. How can I help you? Our guide guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe, alongside our studio producer and board operator, Calvin Brown, in our studios in West Bloomfield Township, but we're broadcasting all throughout the state of Michigan on a number of different television, radio, and web outlets. Find all of those on our website at civiccentertv.com and clicking on Megacast. Joining us now is Dr. Varun Vohra. He is the academic director and clinical toxicologist with the Michigan Poison Center, and he joins us now on the Megacast. Dr. Vohra, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate having you on. So as we head into the Halloween weekend, kids will be out trick-or-treating either on Halloween Day with their friends and family. They may be going to some parties as well, but they're also going to be interacting with a lot of people that they may not know, and in many cases that they don't know. They're just strangers and they're getting candy from them. But like always, there are certain hazards that come along with that beyond just the stranger danger element of it. From the Michigan Poison Center's side, what are some things as we go into Halloween season that parents and even kids that are old enough to keep an eye out for something like that, like these hazards, what should they be looking out for this Halloween season?
Yeah, so I think the parents are going to be playing a huge role with all of this, especially with young kids receiving candy, like you said, from people that they don't know. So I think with parents having to check each and every piece of candy that kids do get when they get back home, reading the labels properly is going to be important. Not allowing or not allowing the children to eat or get into any sort of damaged or wet or tampered with sort of packaging. I think anything homemade or unpackaged fruit, we'd recommend avoiding. And I think for the kids or kids who are old enough to kind of know better is to not accept anything, with young kids at least, not to accept anything from strangers in terms of the candies or items that they may be getting, and always have an adult check them before consuming them. So I think the parents or the adults are going to be pivotal during this time of year.
So what are you checking these candies for when if you're a parent and you're looking through your kid's candy, either in process, if they'd like to eat some of it along the way when they're trick-or-treating, or more ideally, as you said, after they've gotten home? What are some of these things that you're looking for, and maybe some new things this year that we're looking for as opposed to previously?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, making sure that the packaging is intact, it's not been tampered with, it looks like regular candy that we're all used to. And then as far as new things, I mean, what we're seeing throughout the years now is a kind of an increase in these sort of pediatric exposures to these marijuana edibles. So a lot of times THC will be infused into commonly consumed snack items like brownies, cookies, candies, what have you, and they resemble them too. So recently there was a gas station where law enforcement did find marijuana edibles in products that look like, Gushers or Warheads. So I think that's where reading the label is going to be really important for parents, because oftentimes labels can have things that say THC infused or marijuana infused, and making sure that those all look at least legitimate. It is tough because there's no real federal regulations right now in terms of packaging for these products, but it's going to be really important for the parents to kind of examine each and every piece of candy and making sure that they look and they appear like traditionally held candies that we're used to from the convenience store.
And what sort of negative impacts can be had on a child in particular, and it obviously would depend on age and body type as well, because younger children are smaller and older children are usually bigger, and so the contents of these edibles are going to have different effects on them. But generally speaking, how would one of these marijuana edibles that may look like a regular candy bar for a child, how would that affect them if they are exposed to these edibles?
Yeah, so typically what we'll see, and like you hit the nail on the head, right? So smaller kids, they may be more susceptible with a lower toxic threshold, because just based on sheer size, it doesn't take as much for them to show symptoms. So symptoms will typically be, they'll present as drowsy, they won't be acting like themselves, they may have uncoordinated movements. And, eventually they'll get more sedated, depending on the severity of the exposure. With really, really massive exposures, you'll see that sort of neurological impairment with the drowsiness, reduced level of consciousness. They may have an increase in heart rate at first, but eventually over the course of time, we would be worried about their heart rate and blood pressure kind of lowering down. And then also trouble breathing potentially as well with really big exposures. So the most important thing to do is to keep an eye on your child first and foremost, making sure that they're behaving like normal and they're eating and drinking okay. If there's any suspicion or of exposure, but this child is not showing symptoms yet, I'd recommend calling the Michigan Poison and Drug Information Center. Our number is 1-800-222-1222. We have specialists on hand to answer those types of questions and help guide parents through that. The important thing, though, is not to make kids vomit. We do not recommend making anyone vomit forcefully, because that can create even more negative issues and potential complications. And in the event that you think that it is an emergency, always call 911 and get the child to a hospital as soon as possible.
We're joined by Dr. Varun Vohra. He is the academic director and a clinical toxicologist with the Michigan Poison Center, joining us on the Megacast. And Dr. Vohra, just how severe can these reactions be in children if they are exposed to these edibles? Can it be? Is it usually a result of hospitalization? Can it be deadly? Is it somewhere usually in between, or maybe even less severe than those symptoms?
Yeah, so typically exposures for the majority of cases will be relatively mild, and they'll resolve within typically 24 hours with really large ingestions, especially with edible products. Like I mentioned, you could see some cardiovascular issues, some drop in blood pressure and heart rate. Initially, it'll kind of present with a higher heart rate, and then eventually that can progress and decline. They could have breathing issues as well. So there have been cases where kids have ended up in the ICUs and ventilated actually because of airway issues due to massive exposures. And something kind of new on the horizon is Delta 8 THC. Which is similar to Delta 9 THC, which is the traditional active ingredient or psychoactive ingredient that we associate with marijuana and cannabis. So Delta 8 THC is also making its way out there into these kinds of products. There have been recent cases with kids getting into those adult products, thinking that it was candy. So it can be severe depending on the extent of the exposure and the dose. So it's something not to take lightly at all.
We're joined by Dr. Varun Vohra from the Michigan Poison Center today on the Megacast. Dr. Vohra, outside of the Halloween end of things, there's been recent salmonella outbreaks in 37 states related to onions. What should people be looking out for as they're going to the grocery store? Is this across the board with onions? Is it only specific brands? And what should people be keeping an eye out for that may link them to exposure to the salmonella?
Yeah, so there have been recent salmonella outbreak with white, red, and yellow onions. So there seems to be, according to the CDC, that the source is via products from Mexico. And I would urge everyone to go onto the CDC website to look up, since they have a list of specific products that have either been recalled or are suspected to possibly contain or be contaminated with salmonella. The most important thing would be, if you are in doubt, if you have onions which you purchased recently and are questioning it, avoid it altogether, throw it in the trash, and go to the website and look at that list and make sure that you're buying products that are not on that list. In the same vein, there has been a recent outbreak or associated with salami sticks from Trader Joe's. It's a Soterio premium brand of Italian salami sticks, which have been affiliated or associated with salmonella contamination in several states, including Michigan. So again, doing your due diligence and making sure that you are up to date, looking at the CDC websites, and CDC is working closely with the FDA as well. Signs and symptoms associated with salmonella poisoning can be mostly GI issues, so nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Could be potentially bloody diarrhea at times, and symptoms can occur relatively quickly. I mean, anywhere within 6 hours or even longer, potentially even within 6 days. And the symptoms can last quite a long time too, upwards of 4 to 7 days. So I think the most important thing is keeping an eye, if it's a child or yourself, making sure that they are eating and drinking enough, staying hydrated. And if symptoms do last longer than, say, 3 days, go to your local urgent care or emergency department to be evaluated. I think that's going to be the most important thing, especially if you're running a high fever, if you're not able to stay hydrated, if you have a decrease in your urination, if you're not urinating as frequently. That's going to be really, really important to have that examined if that persists.
We're joined by Dr. Varun Vohra. He is from the Michigan Poison Center, joining us on the Megacast. Just a few more minutes with you, Dr. Vohra, before we'll say goodbye today. There were recent results from the annual National Youth Tobacco Survey through the FDA and the CDC. That's finding they're continuing to see an increase in the use of e-cigarettes among younger people, children at middle school and high school age in particular. Just at what rate is this growing in the U.S. and why is it of concern to the FDA and the CDC?
Yeah, so as far as e-cigarettes, we are seeing a pretty tangible increase in use, and recently certain products have been approved by certain companies, including which have gone through the FDA for approved marketing for e-cigarettes. So it is concerning just because of the actual active ingredients in these e-cigarettes are pretty highly concentrated products, especially liquid nicotine, which can be a lot more concentrated than the traditional amount that we see in tobacco cigarettes, normal cigarettes. And the concern there is, again, with exposure to to the youth, especially young children getting into this, similar to the pediatric marijuana edibles. If they get into this, into these products inadvertently, they are packaged to entice youth with packaging that is colorful, has cool names and whatnot. These products are highly concentrated, and it does not take a lot for toxic effects to manifest, especially in a young child, which can include with trouble breathing in their cardiovascular system, as well as seizures, which can be really concerning. So it's something that we are certainly keeping an eye on and doing more outreach on with the general public, as well as schools. So our Poison Center educator has been really instrumental in kind of getting that message out there, as well as putting that information on our website and our social media platforms as well.
We're joined by Dr. Varun Vohra from the Michigan Poison Center on the Megacast. Dr. Vohra, before we let you go, anything else that our audience should be keeping an eye out on, either as we enter the Halloween weekend or going forward?
Yeah, I think, just reiterating, when you try, be safe when you're out there with your kids. Again, reading every piece of candy, checking the labels, making sure that they're not tampered with. If you have any questions, call us at the Michigan Poison and Drug Information Center. We're 1-800-222-1222. Our website is mipoisonhelp.org. And we're present on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, with all this information handy for you. So if you have any questions, please call us. We're here to help with any questions and exposures. So we provide a 24/7 service, which is free of charge. So please contact us.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us and telling us more about things we should be looking out for in the general community, and especially for those parents and kids heading into the Halloween weekend.
Yep. Thank you, Tyler. Have a good one.
Dr. Varun Vohra from the Michigan Poison Center with us on the Megacast. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll head over to Oakland University and speak with their Director of Outreach, Recruitment, and Retention, as well as their Assistant Director of Outreach and Retention, Professor Chris Kobus, and Bianca Bryant will join us next on the Megacast. You're watching and listening on our family of television, radio, and other media outlets.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council,
we work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
A rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was going to grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary. And if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime-victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you did. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Calvin Brown in our studios in West Bloomfield Township, where we broadcast live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, Monday through Friday. Learn more information about everywhere that we broadcast and find all of our shows on demand and all of our individual interviews on demand as well at civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Joining us now is Bianca Bryant and Professor Chris Kobus, the Assistant Director of Outreach and Retention at Oakland University and the Director of Outreach, Recruitment, and Retention as well, and a professor in the Mechanical Engineering program, where Oakland University's School of Engineering and Computer Sciences were recently recognized for providing outstanding STEM education for K through 12 students in area school districts. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Our pleasure.
Appreciate having you on. So tell us about some of the outreach programs that you are providing right now for K through 12 schools, and what do those kind of look like when you are providing them?
Yeah, so Chris, I'll actually go ahead and let you go over kind of what we've done in the past, and we can go ahead then and kind of talk about what we've been doing given the pandemic.
Sure.
Yeah, so before the lockdown, everything was face-to-face, hands-on, student-centered, and we have programs that go span the entire summer. So during the summer, these are week-long camps that roughly are the same time as typical school days, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we offer a variety of different flavors there, ranging from computer science to robotics to mechanical engineering, analog and digital circuits, microprocessor design, a lot of coding classes. And so we have students that come on board and they're with us for most of those 10 weeks in the summer. And it's a pretty full summer program. So we get upwards of 1,000 students coming through our program every summer. And then during the school year, of course, we can't run the equivalent of a K through 12 school. That's not our role. But we do host STEM field trips. So we partner with schools and school districts, and they bus kids in 90 at a time, mostly in the 4th grade. And you might be wondering why the 4th grade. That's a grade where the curriculum is kind of centered towards bread and butter STEM topics. What is energy? What is a force in motion? Mm-hmm. Those types of things. So it's a perfect in for us. And what we do is we partner with the schools by communicating with the teachers that are going to be coming with their classes. And we ask them, where are you in the curriculum? lay out the kinds of possibilities for hands-on projects that the students can do while they're here. And the teachers get to pick something that helps them reach their objectives, something that adds a hands-on element to the things that they're learning in class. So we've kind of become kind of an hands-on enrichment program for a lot of the teachers that are teaching these subjects. So we host about around 3,000 students come through during a school year in the fall and in the winter on these field trips, pre-lockdown, of course. In addition, we do Saturday programs, mostly partnering with the Detroit area pre-college engineering program. So we have underrepresented students that come every Saturday for about half a day. We give them some snacks and we give them a good hands-on educational experience. So we have educational partners, Detroit area pre-college engineering program, or DAPSEP is one, Engineering Society of Detroit, Michigan Women Forward, and others that we create special programming for their students, try to encourage them to consider a STEM career, and to get there, of course, a STEM academic pathway.
And so,
go ahead.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to also add, and then recently what we've had to do is we've transitioned all of those programs that Dr. Kobus had talked about to a virtual platform during the pandemic. And so that is where kind of this whole award process kind of got into place, is being able to transition developmentally appropriate programs for K through 12.
We're joined by Bianca Bryant and Professor Chris Kobus, joining us from the Outreach and Retention Program at Oakland University for their School of Engineering and Computer Sciences. We're going around to different STEM outreach programs that they're providing to K through 12 students all throughout the local area. And so, Bianca, why is it important to go to these K through 12 schools and have that early intervention where you're providing this look into STEM fields and into all the different varieties of activities that kids can participate in, and learning opportunities and potential career opportunities? Why is it so important to get that in front of them so early?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think anybody could probably agree with me here is STEM is not going away, right? This is definitely the future, and it's currently the present, right? A lot of times, and unfortunately, children sometimes can not necessarily cling to the math and the sciences as easy as maybe some others, right? Especially our underrepresented minorities. And so what we do is we're able to provide a fun, interactive program of activities for kids. A lot of times they're not even realizing they're learning STEM, right? We're making roller coasters, we're talking about the human body, and then going over, velocity, and going over the, calibrations and things of that nature. So we want to do it at a young age to get the children acclimated, to already get them excited about it. And that way, as they're going on throughout their education, right, it's no more daunting. It's something you're already familiar with throughout your education.
And so then, Bianca, you mentioned earlier some of the efforts that were taken by your program to continue that STEM outreach during the pandemic. What were some of those ways in which that was continued and during the pandemic, and how does that add to this STEM education? But what other challenges does it also present to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to right off the bat tell you a challenge. And that is one of the biggest perks of being a part of our STEM initiatives at Oakland University is to bring the kids to campus. A lot of the children who participate are first generation college students. A lot of the children are underrepresented minorities, or they've never known anyone who's gone to college, right? And so being able to come to a lab and be in an actual engineering center is something that we just can't copy, right? So that is definitely the biggest challenge. But what we did do is we went ahead and we tried to bring as much as we can into the home, right? So we made sure to send any materials that we had, depending on what the camp was, to that child. And then via Zoom, we would actually go one-on-one with a personal TA to show them how to go ahead and put that science experiment or that project together in that manner. We made sure to also send swag right? So stuff from Oakland University, we made sure to kind of keep them engaged every single day, no matter the situation. And then hopefully, now that we're hopefully on the upswing of things, we'll go ahead and we'll still reach out to come for campus now for 2022 for summer camps.
And then either of you, what are some of the outreach programs that are coming up soon, so that parents and the kids that may be interested in this for themselves or for their children can keep an eye out and then maybe even register to participate in some of these?
Yeah, Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, I think the thing that parents and students want to sign up for is, of course, the summer camps.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents are looking forward to getting back to face-to-face. So that's going to be an opportunity. We also have at the end of January, SECS Day, that's School of Engineering Computer Science Day. And that's typically aimed at high school students that are looking at colleges. So it's a day where we open our labs, all the faculty are hands on deck, and you get to spend some time with us. We take you through our entire program. We host parents and potential OU students just for that one day. So that's coming online now. Registration is open for that. Mm-hmm. So those are two opportunities where parents sign up. For things like field trips, that's typically done with school districts, not with the parents directly. We communicate with the schools and the school districts for that.
Yes, and also any community partners or nonprofit programs as well.
We're joined by Bianca Bryant and by Professor Chris Kobus. They're joining us from Oakland University School of Engineering and Computer Sciences, where they are respectively the Assistant Director of Outreach and Retention and the Director of Outreach, Recruitment, and Retention for that program. And you were recently recognized with an engagement award from the University Professional and Continuing Education Association. Tell us a little bit about that recognition and how that came about.
Yeah, so that kind of came about essentially through a few projects that Dr. Kobus has been a part of since 2011, 2012, right? And the biggest thing here is we want to ensure that we're engaging our underrepresented students, our underrepresented minorities, especially in STEM. Research has shown and data has shown we do not have enough women in STEM. We do not have enough visual minorities in STEM, right? And so Dr. Kobus, from an early on, that has been his priority. So he has gone out to Pontiac, he has gone out to Detroit areas to get students to come to our summer camps, and not just come and participate, but he provides scholarships for these students, meaning that is free of charge for those students to participate in these programs. And so through that engagement award, it is definitely an honor, but it's just something that we do on a regular basis and just try to encourage students to get into STEM and to not be disheartened by the math and the sciences, right? So it's been definitely, though, an honor to be a part of that organization.
And Professor Kobus, anything else that would be important for our audience, either parents or students or school organizations that may be interested in engaging in some of these programs, anything else that would be important for them to know at this time?
Yeah, for the parents especially, the one thing that I would point out is our first priority is not to deliver STEM content, but to keep the kids safe.
Yes.
So all the years that this program has been running, we have very strict student to facilitator ratios. Mm-hmm. All of our staff goes through a background check, and we've never lost a student. And we have hundreds of students every day, for instance, in the summer coming on campus. So the first priority, and I instill this in my staff, is keep the kids safe, account for them. After that, that's when we get into delivering STEM content. The other thing I would do is I'd circle back to your earlier question about engaging kids in STEM, and the younger we can engage them, the better. One of the things that I have seen all the years that I've been doing this is that in the STEM summer camps, it's about a 50-50 male-female ratio. By the time you get to high school, it's mostly guys.
Yeah.
So that's part of why we try to engage the younger students as much as possible, because in high school, for one thing, they're kind of set on an academic path already. If I get a senior excited about engineering and they haven't had an academic path that is basically a pre-engineering, they're not going to be college ready. That doesn't mean they can't still succeed. They can still come to college, but they're going to be in some remediation for a time, maybe a semester or two. But if you get excited about it, say in 6th grade, 7th grade, elementary school, middle school, now you set an academic path such that you will be college ready for a STEM discipline. And that's a whole lot better, because then that would eliminate any need for remedial classes. You can just go right into biology curriculum, chemistry curriculum, engineering, etc.
And Bianca, where can people find more information about this program if they want to learn more, or if they want to sign up for some of these outreach programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So what they want to do is they want to go to oakland.edu/outreach, I believe, right, Chris? SECS Outreach. We will be having the actual sign up for summer camps taking place here, hopefully by early February. Summer camp does fill up pretty fast, so be on the lookout for that, everybody. We try to make space where we can, but those do fill up fast, especially our ground robotics, where you actually get to work with vehicles and all of that nature. So, but they can also reach out to me as well if they have any questions, and that is Bianca Bryant, and my email would be bbryant@oakland.edu, and I'd be more than happy to talk to somebody about how to get registered, and if they just want to be on a listserv as well.
Well, Bianca, Professor, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Again, you can learn more information by going to their website at oakland.edu/outreach to learn more about this program as well. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll stay at Oakland University, and we'll go from their STEM programs to their basketball program and talk with longtime head coach Greg Kampe. That's coming up next. You're listening and watching the Megacast, including on your radio homes, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. The Megacast returns after this.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council.
As partners working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is a source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife, and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Calvin Brown in our studios in West Bloomfield Township, where we broadcast out of each and every day during the work week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until 12 noon. But we're also broadcasting all throughout the state of Michigan and all throughout Oakland County on a number of different community television and radio stations and online on civiccentertv.com and on My Michigan TV. Well, as we get further on into the fall season and we get into the thick of the college football season, we also get to the beginning of the college basketball season. And coming up tonight at 7 o'clock, the Oakland Golden Grizzlies open their season with an exhibition game against Eastern Michigan University at the O-Arena on the campus of Oakland University. And joining us now to talk about that and more is head coach Greg Kampe of the Oakland Golden Grizzlies basketball team. Coach, thanks for being with us today.
Tyler, glad you had me. I'm really excited about the season to get going, so let's have some fun and figure it out.
Yeah, back to a little bit more of normalcy this year. Of course, we're still in the middle of the pandemic. It's still there's still a lot to navigate around that situation, but nowhere near as severe, I wouldn't think from the outside looking in, at least it seems that way, as last season. How are things different this year, maybe more normal? In your team's operations and the NCAA's operations of their college basketball season than in the year previous?
Well, it is more normal than it was last year, obviously, but it's still not what it used to be. The good thing is tonight fans are going to be allowed in the arena the first time in 2 years. I'm interested to see, normally an exhibition game would get, a fourth of the arena full. So I'm interested to see if that happens tonight or if it's less or if it's more. It could be less because people are still afraid to go. But, you watch college football games and you see 100,000 people sit next to each other in Ann Arbor. So I would surely think people will show up. And so I'm excited about that. I only have 2 players on my team, Tyler, that have ever played a college basketball game in front of someone. It's a young team, but it's an amazing statistic when you think about it. And so get the juices flowing and get back to, as you said, some sense of normalcy is really, I'm looking forward to it.
And it's just that different feel playing a college basketball game in an environment where you have your stands or your away opponent's stands completely full. It's loud, it's energetic, and it's just that environment of college basketball, much like, as you mentioned on the football side, that the players feed off of, and really anybody that's enjoying college basketball feeds off too. So it's really nice to see that back in greater capacity this year than before, and a little bit more normalcy in that regard. Last year, your team, 12-18 overall, 10-10 in the Horizon League, finished as the 3rd seed in that conference going into the tournament, and then made it all the way into the championship game where, of course, you fell to Cleveland State by a score of 80-69. This year, a really exciting team coming back. Like you said, you got a really exciting team coming in. Particularly, you have a very interesting transfer coming in from Marquette and Jamal Cain, who you even said you think is an NBA prospect. Tell us a little bit about Jamal Cain and what he brings to this squad this year that will hopefully lead to a much improved Oakland University basketball team.
Well, the season last year, it was an anomaly with COVID. We played our first game with 3 days of practice. And when I say 3 days of practice, there was no summer, there was no fall, there was nothing. There was 3 days of practice. And you just can't do that. And we started the season 0-9, which we had a COVID would go through our program in early October, and we were completely shut down for 30 days. We played the games, though, because, I looked at it as there are people that have lost their jobs. There's businesses shut down. We've got a chance for these young men to get out and at least, playing games and do what they want to do. And so, in retrospect, I'm not sure we should have played the first 4 or 5 of those games. We probably should have spent a couple weeks prepping and getting them ready. But as the season went on, we got a lot better. And by the end of it, as you said, we were in the championship game. We've got almost everybody back, 2 role players that aren't back. But other than that, we have, every major contributor back. And then we bring in Jamal Cain, who he's 6'8", he's long, he's athletic. He averaged 10 points a game in the Big East. He because of COVID, they all got an extra year, and he decided to to spend his COVID year back home. He's from Pontiac. And you know, at Marquette, he was a kid in their offense. He stood in the corner, and they had a player named Marcus Howard who led the country in scoring, who had the ball in his hands all the time, and he just kind of waited for the ball to be thrown to him, where at our place, we're going to feature him. And it's very similar to a guy we had a decade ago named Raul Marshall, who when he transferred here, we turned him into the star of our team, and another guy named Kendrick Nunn, who averaged 9 or 10 points a game at Illinois, and then came here and averaged 27 a game. So, we have a history of being able to take high major players and featuring them in our offense, and that's what we're going to do with Jamal. And I'll be very surprised if he doesn't average 20 points a game and maybe 10 rebounds a game and just put up some fantastic numbers, because he's very talented.
Yeah, and you have a lot of other talent across the board as well. Another really interesting player on your team is Jalen Moore, coming back, 537 points, 252 assists, 50 steals last season. Another guy defensively, Trey Townsend, with 24 blocks in the previous season. You got a lot of depth on this team this year, and like you said, bringing in Kane and having some of these guys come back, having that veteran presence there, that can be huge, especially in the Horizon League, where we often see those veteran teams have really successful seasons, and in many cases in the NCAA tournament then be very challenging for a lot of these other teams that come in from bigger conferences with a lot more notoriety and end up being surprised by these little engines that could, coming from smaller leagues like the Horizon.
Well, the Horizon League has had a team in the national championship game twice in the last decade. Mm-hmm. So our league has performed pretty well. Butler is no longer in our league, but when they were in the Horizon League, they got to 2 straight national championship games, lost to Duke on a last-second shot. And I think they actually, I can't remember who the other team was they played. But so our league has a history of doing very well in the NCAA tournament. The last couple of years has not been good, and but I think our league's going to be as good as it's been since Oakland's been in the league. And and that's because of the pandemic, because of the extra COVID year. Everybody's got all their players back, and the normal maturation of seniors moving on and bringing in freshmen didn't occur this year. The seniors stayed, and Cleveland State, who beat us in the championship game, all their players came back, and 4 of them should have graduated. Wright State has their team back. One of their players did not come back, a very good one, but for the most part, they're all back. And then there's, Detroit was one of the hottest teams in the league last year at the end, and they're back, and they've got a great player in Antoine Davis. So the league's going to be very competitive, and my guess is the team that wins it and gets to the NCAA tournament, and this could be a year we get 2 teams in. My guess is that team will be a very hard out in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and it's going to be an even more competitive season. Teams coming back hungry, coming back with their fans in the stands behind them, giving them the extra inspiration coming out of that COVID season, and without the looming monster, so to speak, behind them each and every week of a COVID-19 outbreak shutting down their season in part for the better part of several days or weeks even, or taking players out of their team. Still a precaution that's being taken, and still something that is there, but not nearly as severe as in past seasons. We're joined by Greg Kampe, head coach of the Oakland University men's basketball team. They have their first game tonight, 7 o'clock at the Arena. They'll be taking on Eastern Michigan University in a COVID relief charity exhibition game that will be benefiting the Covenant Academy, which is a COVID relief organization. Coach Kampe, what ultimately led to the decision between your staff and the staff at Eastern Michigan University to hold this exhibition game supporting this particular charity?
Well, Stan Heath is a new coach there, and he and I have known each other for a long time. And he called in the spring about playing this year, and I said we couldn't do it, that our schedule's full. And then a few months later, he called back and said, "Do you want to do one of those secret scrimmages?" And I said no, but 3 or 4 years ago when the flood happened in Houston, we did a flood relief game. Would you be interested in doing a charity thing? And he absolutely said yes. And anytime you can get a game that doesn't count in front of fans against good competition, you find out a lot about your team. So we both agreed to it, and then we looked into what the regulations and rules are, and we're going to host it this year, and then next year, if it's still viable to do, if COVID is still a problem and we're still looking to ways to raise money, we'll do another one at their place. So it's just two friends got together that would like to play each other, and that's how it happened.
We're joined by Greg Kampe, Oakland University head basketball coach. That exhibition game benefiting Covenant Academy, a COVID-19 relief organization, will be happening tonight at the Arena, 7 o'clock p.m. The Oakland Golden Grizzlies taking on the Eastern Michigan Eagles at the Arena in this exhibition game. The regular season will kick off November 9th when they go on the road and play another very competitive team out east in West Virginia, coached by another legendary head coach in Bob Huggins out there. And Coach Kampe, of course, you're now currently the third longest tenured head coach in Division I college basketball behind Jim Boeheim and the soon-to-be retired Mike Krzyzewski. It's your 38th season at the helm. What keeps you going? What keeps you going at this job and keeps you continuing your long and illustrious career at Oakland University?
Well, I'm a competitive person, and what other business is there that you can go out and have a scoreboard and watch young men grow, from boys to men. You get them when they're 18 and let them go when they're 22 or 23 years old, and have a real influence on shaping their lives. So that is what motivates me every day, and as long as that competitive gene is in me, and as long as that I think I'm still doing some good for these young men, I'm going to do this. I enjoy it, and I don't see that changing in the near future. And so it's I don't feel I've ever gone to work a day in my life. And there aren't a lot of people that can say that. So very fortunate, been lucky to stay at the same school. Our business is one where you come and go and you get fired, and, all the friends that I started with, 45 years ago in this business, every one of them has been fired. And many of them get new jobs and then get fired again. That's just what this business is. And I've been lucky that hasn't happened yet. That day will come, though. If I don't retire, that day will come. So I know that, and just battling every day.
And so that brings up another interesting question, too, because you mentioned that, coaches are hired and they're fired. Some of them move on to other jobs. They're shifting around a lot. And, of course, we're in the middle of rivalry week on the football side between Michigan and Michigan State, and a lot of talk about with the success that Michigan State football has had, rumors swirling around with Mel Tucker and whether or not he may be interested in other jobs at schools like USC or most particularly LSU. So that brings up the question. You've been there for 38 years at Oakland University. You've had quite a lot of success there. What has kept you at Oakland University instead of seeking some of these other opportunities to go to other schools, maybe in bigger leagues with bigger financial backing from boosters and from their athletic departments? Why Oakland, and why still Oakland as your home and your place to be?
Well, the honest answer is that I had 3 boys and a family that loved living in this area. We lived in Oakland County, lived on a lake. The school systems were great. Their friends, and every job that I was offered and every opportunity that I had, when I sat down and looked at it, I just didn't want to move my boys. I just didn't want to do that. And I'm at a school that I've been at a long time, and I've got it, I'm working at it and got it going where, if I could sneak away and watch them play their sports, I could do it and not have to worry about, reading in the newspaper that I wasn't at some recruiting event. I think people knew who I was. And so that was probably the biggest reason I didn't leave. I loved my boys, and I wanted them to have everything they could possibly have. And why did I need anything else? I had a wife that also was employed and had a good earning, so it wasn't like I needed to chase money. But I will tell you, I never was offered, you're talking about Mel Tucker, and if he gets offered $8 or $9 million, I've never been offered that. And if somebody came and offered me $8 or $9 million, Tyler, I'd But the truth of the matter is it's very seldom in someone's life that they can grow with a school. I professionally grew with a university that grew. When I got to Oakland, there were 8,000 students. Maybe 800 lived on campus, and now we're 20,000, close to 5,000 on campus. We're nationally known. You know, we're just not a little school in the middle of Michigan now. People know you. You know, when I first got here, they thought I was going to California, and now people know everything about us, and it's just been very. I'm giving you a long answer, but I mean, there is no single reason why I've stayed.
Yeah, you can go somewhere else and continue a legacy, or you can stay in a place that you love and build a legacy. And that's certainly what you've done over there at Oakland University. And really excited about this upcoming season for you in the Horizon League and back in a more competitive play in the NCAA this year with a little more normalcy as well. Again, that Oakland University expedition game tonight against Eastern Michigan, a charity expedition game benefiting Covenant Academy, which is a COVID relief organization. 7 o'clock at the O-Arena against Eastern Michigan. If you're unable to attend, you can watch on ESPN Plus with Neil Rule on play-by-play and Rex Walters on color commentary as well. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's $10 is all it is to get in. You're not going to be able to go to a Division I college basketball game very often for $10. So, and they're in a bad seat in our place. So come on out and enjoy it.
That's for sure.
Tyler.
Yeah, that's for sure. Always a good environment over there. Fun basketball environment, and $10 you're going to see a good basketball game and support a good cause as well. We appreciate it. Coach Kampe and his team begin their regular season November 9th at West Virginia as they get back to a little more normalcy this year with the college basketball season. Always appreciate having him on the show. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll go to the University of Michigan, where we'll be joined by a Ph.D. candidate and DMACS Research Associate, Lydia Wileden, to talk about some of the research she's been doing on campus, including on housing and some of those disparities as well. That'll be coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
To Sophia and Gabriel, even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
It's the Great Lakes water. And so what people do ends up in our waterways.
Flushable wipes are just evil. They should be thrown away. They're impossible to destroy, and they can cause significant problems.
One of the main things when you're cooking is to not dump fats, oils, and greases down your drains.
They stick to the sides of pipes. They stick to everything they come in contact with. Don't put it down the sink.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
Storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe, alongside our studio producer and board operator Calvin Brown in our studios at Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road in West Bloomfield Township. But we're also broadcasting all throughout Oakland County and across the state of Michigan. Learn more information about all the places you can find us all across the Great Lakes state by joining us on our website at civiccentertv.com and clicking on Megacast. With us now is Lydia Wileden. She is a U of M Ph.D. candidate and a DMACS Research Associate. Her research primarily focuses on measuring neighborhood perceptions and reputation and documenting processes of neighborhood change. Lydia, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. So you are a DMACS Research Associate. Tell us a little bit about that DMACS program and what that's all about.
Yeah, so DMACS stands for the Detroit Metro Area Communities Study, and it is a survey research project run out of the University of Michigan, primarily out of the Ford School of Public Policy and the Institute for Social Research, and led by Professor Jeffrey Morinoff and Professor Liz Gerber. And that survey project started in 2016 and collects data on a representative sample of Detroit residents to try to understand their opinions about different things that are happening in the city, to try to give Detroit residents a voice to help shape public policy, and also to, most recently, understand the effects of COVID on Detroit residents. So I mentioned that we started in 2016. That was when our first survey went into the field. In 2020, March of 2020, COVID emerged as a challenging dimension of our time, and Detroit emerged as a COVID hotspot, and we realized that we had the survey infrastructure in place to basically capture how the pandemic affected the health and well-being of Detroit residents. And so starting in March 2020, we pivoted a little bit to really focusing on the impacts of COVID and to a rapid response survey process. So instead of doing one survey every 6 months, we've now done 7 or 8 surveys just during this 18-month span of COVID. So we have a really nice repeated measure of how Detroiters are faring over the course of the pandemic.
And then in terms of the findings of these surveys, what have been some of the general results that you and others participating in the DMACS study have found? And maybe if there have been any surprises from your results so far?
Yeah, I think early on in the pandemic, one of the things that we found that really brought home some of the disparities that were being wrought by COVID was just the disparity in who knew someone who had died or gotten ill from COVID. And, overall, we found that within Detroit, about a third of residents said that they had a friend or family member who had died from COVID. This is basically last summer. So that seems like a pretty high impact. I felt very fortunate that I didn't know anybody personally who had gotten ill. But when you look at the differences between Black Detroiters and white Detroiters and who knew someone who had died from COVID, the disparity was really shocking to me. 42% of Black residents said that they knew a friend or family member who had died from COVID as of last July, compared to just 11% of white residents. So Black residents were 4 times as likely. And this was around the same time also that we had a lot of demonstrations against police brutality and over-policing. And it really brought home this idea that there was a twin pandemic happening, especially in communities of color. So I think that, early on, certainly that was one of those findings that really surprised me. I think some other things, we see a lot of residents who have fallen behind on their bills, a lot of residents who have said that, if they were hit with an emergency $400 expense, they wouldn't be able to pay it. So I think some of these findings help show that COVID obviously has health impacts, but the impacts go so much further than that. And so those are some of our findings kind of early on in the pandemic, or maybe midway through. I don't know what the end point remains to be seen. But even more recently, we pride ourselves on having a representative sample. We recruit people based on their addresses. And so we have 2,000 residents spread across the city. And then we use survey weights to shift the population of our sample so that it matches the population of Detroit, because there's inevitably harder to reach respondents. And because of the size of our sample and the representative nature, we're able to make estimates of the rate of unemployment in Detroit and have a much larger sample than say the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who also produces estimates for the city and the broader metro area. And our estimate in June was that 25% of residents who are in the labor force, so those who are either actively working or seeking work, were currently unemployed. And that was a much higher unemployment rate than certainly the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It was not too much higher than the current population survey, but I think that really brought home, especially this summer when we thought that the pandemic was maybe waning, that the level of need and also the level of people who were not able to return to normal remained really high. And I think in the months since, we all have seen the help wanted signs and probably experienced service disruptions just because there are so many people, so many businesses looking for employees. And I think our data sort of hinted that might be coming. So some of those are surprising.
We're joined by Lydia Wileden. She is a University of Michigan Ph.D. candidate and a DMACS Research Associate as well. And Lydia, there was recently a really interesting story, concerning story from WXYZ TV. Nearly 38,000 Detroit residents lived, that said that nearly 38,000 Detroit households lived in quote-unquote inadequate housing in the past year, according to some studies, including yours. Your most recent report focused on home repair needs in the city of Detroit. What did you find were some of the most common needs in these home repairs, and just to what extent home repairs in the city of Detroit are necessary at this moment in time?
Yeah, so we included on our most recent survey, which was conducted in June of this year, June 2021, some questions about home conditions and residents' need for home repair. And that has been a story that some of my colleagues, especially at Poverty Solutions at the University of Michigan, have been following over time. And certainly a number of reporters and members of the press in Detroit have been focused on for a long time. And the basic idea is that while there's been a lot of conversation around concerns over evictions and concerns over foreclosures, and also concerns over property tax issues in Detroit, there's this other dimension of housing insecurity that maybe gets a little bit less coverage, and that is the condition that a lot of residents live in, and the need for home repair among especially low-income residents. And my colleagues at Poverty Solutions, I believe a year prior, had put forth a report that used a measure from the American Housing Study that assessed the number of inadequate, or the rate of inadequate homes in the metro area. So the Detroit, Warren, Dearborn metro area, and said, okay, if houses in Detroit are in inadequate condition at the same rate that they are in the metro area, they estimated that about 24,000 households probably lived in inadequate or poor quality housing. But we know that Detroit's very different in a lot of ways from the rest of the metro area. The housing often is older, the population is more heavily minority, and also there's a much higher poverty rate in the city. And so it was quite likely, and my colleagues at Poverty Solutions acknowledged this, that their estimate was probably an underestimate. And so we wanted to use our survey to say, can we refine that estimate at all? Can we give sort of an updated estimate of how many people are actually living in inadequate quality housing? And like you said, our estimate is closer to 38,000, which I think translates to around 91,000 residents. So in a city of around 650,000 residents, that's quite a sizable percent of the population. So you asked specifically, like, what types of housing conditions and housing needs are people living with? By far within the city, the most common issue that people are living with is just stopped up plumbing, or pests, rats, cockroaches, mice, that type of thing. But that's not what we were using to count how many people were living in inadequate housing. When we defined inadequate quality housing, we were focused on those who tell us that in the last year they experienced a major problem with lack of heat, exposed wires or lack of electricity, and either no running water or no hot water. So one or more of those four conditions. And that's where we get this estimate that around 13% of Detroiters experience that as a major problem in the last year.
We're joined by Lydia Wileden. She is a DMACS Research Associate and a Ph.D. candidate at the University of Michigan. And how has, over the course of the pandemic, the data from your studies changed or maybe been impacted by the continued impact of the housing crisis, particularly with people being able to pay their rent in a timely manner, and some of those landlord and tenant issues that have arisen because of that, especially after the federal eviction moratorium had been lifted earlier on, just a couple of months ago?
Yeah, we have tried to track how many people in our data are experiencing housing hardships, like being evicted or foreclosed upon. Unfortunately, because we have an address-based survey, sometimes those people, and because adverse life happenings make it less likely that you're going to find the time to respond to a survey, we haven't seen that much evidence of spikes in evictions and foreclosures, but I know that some administrative data from the state, I believe, suggests otherwise. But what we have seen is, like you said, people falling behind on their bills. And in terms of how thinking about home repair might reflect some of these tensions between tenants and landlords, one thing that we do find is that renters are nearly as likely as actually slightly more likely than homeowners to say that they live in inadequate quality housing. And that's important for two reasons. The first is that there are a number of programs that exist to help residents repair their homes, that give grants or low interest loans to residents to engage in home repair. In fact, the city just launched in September a new program called Renew Detroit. But those programs are really exclusively for homeowners. There you go. There's very little funding available specifically targeted to renters. And in some ways that makes sense, because renters shouldn't necessarily be responsible for the condition of their housing. You'd hope that their landlord is. But there are a lot of cases in Detroit where landlords are sort of intentionally neglecting properties or feel that they have very little reason and that tenants themselves have little recourse to push to have their properties maintained better. So we actually asked renters, have you made requests to your landlord to have your home repaired? And has your landlord been responsive? And among all renters, most say that their landlord, when they've made a request, has been at least somewhat responsive. More than 50% said they were either somewhat or very responsive. But when we look only at those renters who are living in inadequate quality housing, 38% said that their landlord was very unresponsive to their requests for repair. And again, thinking about the types of conditions that we're talking about, lack of heat, lack of hot water, possibly lack of electricity. These are basic living conditions that I think you or I can't really imagine living without. And that's a not uncommon occurrence for a lot of these renters, and they're not able to get their landlords to make the changes that they need.
In the case of homeowners, as you mentioned that these relief programs and funding programs through the city are mostly beneficial to homeowners instead of renters. For them, are those funds that are available to them or have been made available to them, have those been significant enough to mitigate some of these issues at a significant level for individual homeowner to individual homeowner? Or is there still, from what you and from what the DMACS research team has found, still a greater need for more of that relief so that these homeowners can afford to make those very necessary repairs to be living in safe conditions?
No, the available funds are certainly not sufficient. And I don't think that there's not one group to sort of point blame at for that.
Sure.
I mentioned the Renew Detroit program, which arose from, it's using ARPA funds, so the American Recovery Program Act funds, to help residents maintain and stay in their homes, which is, I think, a great use of these federal dollars that are going straight to cities. And it's an example of the city responding directly to a survey that they did that asked residents, what are your top priorities? How would you like us to spend this money? So that's part of what the Renew Detroit program came from, is the residents said, we need money for home repair, and the city made this funding available. But the Renew Detroit program is targeted to seniors, so those over the age of 62, and to residents living with a disability. So that means it's not available to all homeowners. It's really available to a select group. And it also is only includes enough funding for around 750 residents annually. So, or 750, households annually. And, as I said, as we've discussed, if the scope of the problem is there are 38,000 households living in inadequate quality conditions, then addressing the needs of 750 of those is really, I think, a drop in the bucket. And some of your press colleagues have reported that already more than 5,000 applications for that program have been received. I believe that applications remain open until the 31st. So if you're a senior or someone living with a disability who is low income in Detroit, I encourage you to apply. But there's already a greater demand than there likely is ability to meet that demand. And that's only if you fall within these specific categories. So there definitely is greater demand than there is resources available.
We're joined by Lydia Wileden. She's a U of M Ph.D. candidate as well as a DMACS Research Associate. And on the vaccine front, the uptake in vaccination across the state of Michigan, across the U.S., has very much stagnated in the past several months. From what your studies have found on vaccination, what can you tell us about vaccine uptake in Detroit over the course of time, and especially more recently? Now, and especially also including the anticipation of children ages 5 to 11 being able to soon be vaccinated against COVID.
Sure. So I'll start just by caveating that our most recent data was collected in June and July. So in terms of being able to speak to what's happening right now, it's all going to be a little bit speculative. But what we saw when we did our survey in June was that by our estimates, roughly half of Detroit residents, Detroit adults who were eligible, had been vaccinated. That's a little bit higher than what the administrative data suggests. But that suggested there was decent uptake. Obviously, half is not enough to get us to herd immunity. And we also saw some really major disparities in terms of the age of people who were being vaccinated and the race of people who were being vaccinated. So we saw that white residents were a lot more likely to have been vaccinated than Black or Latino residents, but then in fact, that is mostly driven by younger Black and Latino residents, those under the age of 40 who had yet to be vaccinated. So, a major push, I think, is ongoing in the city to try to get those younger adults to vaccinate. I know some great work by members of the steering committee that provides some oversight and some funding for the DMACS project, the MySeal program. Members of that steering committee have been very, very active in trying to get especially residents of communities of color to vaccinate. And what we've seen actually is that persuasion campaign seems to be working. I had the pleasure of presenting some data on Tuesday at a national conference on public health that shows that among those who haven't been vaccinated, residents of color are much more likely to be changing their mind about the vaccine. And my colleague, Pastor Charles Williams, who's also a reverend at the historic King Solomon Baptist Church, there we go, in Detroit, as well as a student in the sociology department, he has said that part of the issue is that there's more of a wait and see mentality in some of these communities, that they weren't necessarily convinced from the get-go that they needed to get the vaccine or that the vaccine was necessarily safe. But we have seen over time a shift in vaccine intention in those communities towards getting the vaccine. And then once you are intent on getting the vaccine, we actually see that there's a pretty high conversion rate. So to throw some numbers at that, when we look at who has gotten vaccinated versus who told us they were very unlikely to get vaccinated, just 2% of white residents who said, I'm unlikely to get vaccinated in January of this year had been vaccinated by June, compared to 36% of Black residents and 70% of Latino residents. So that really suggests that in terms of persuasion, communities of color are, really much more dynamic, and they are, shifting towards vaccinating. And if that trend continues, which we hope to pick up in our next round of data, which we're starting to collect, I believe, in the next week or so, hopefully that will mean that there is a much lower disparity between white residents, Black and Latino residents in terms of uptake. And then you asked about children getting the vaccine, especially now that kids ages 5 to 11 have been cleared to get vaccinated. What we saw in June, when only those ages 12 and up were able to get vaccinated, was a relatively low vaccination rate. And maybe more concerningly, we saw that households with children, the adults in those households, were less likely to be vaccinated. So I know that the city and just the public health department of the state and locally has devoted a lot of resources and attention to trying to shift the minds of those parents, and also to affirm that the vaccines are safe, but that they're also important for kids. And that's something that we're hoping to pick up on in our next survey.
Well, Lydia, we appreciate your time. Thanks for giving us a lot of insight on this really interesting work that's being done through DMACS. We're going to take a quick break.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. On the other side of our break, we'll be joined by one final guest. We'll go from Detroit back out to Birmingham and be joined by Jamie Brook, the operations manager of the Birmingham Shopping District, to talk about the last weekend of their farmers market for the season. That's next. You're watching the Megacast.
people are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
Joined now by Jamie Brooke, the Operations and Events Manager for the Birmingham Shopping District, to talk about the Birmingham Farmers Market. It's still ongoing, but this is the last week, and Jamie is with us now on the Megacast to talk about what's coming up in this final week of the Farmers Market for the season. Jamie, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So tell us a little bit about, for those not familiar, tell us about the farmers market, how it began, and what people can experience still in this last week of the season for the market.
Sure. Our farmers market started almost 19 years ago, actually maybe a little over 19 years ago, with a couple of very dedicated and enthusiastic volunteers approaching the Birmingham Shopping District with what they saw as a need for the local community to be able to purchase Michigan grown and produced agriculture and products and have somewhere to gather with their friends and neighbors on Sunday mornings. So the market has been running in Birmingham's Lot 6, which is a parking lot on North Old Woodward. 660 North Old Woodward is the address if anybody wants to put that into their mapping system. And we run the first Sunday in May until the last Sunday in October from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We usually have 40 to 50 different vendors at the market. A lot of them are there every Sunday with us, and some rotate through, but we have everything from, of course, the handful of farmers who have lots of different crops and seasonal items. So at the beginning of the season, we have more of the plants and flowers, and now we're full produce with fall products with apples and squash and pumpkins, as well as some of the tomatoes and cucumbers and traditional garden vegetables that are still hanging on. I think we're past some of the watermelon and other melons, but certainly still have corn. And then we have some pantry items. We have jam and cookies and pastries and things that you might want to stock up on with the pasta sauce and olive oil, local honey, and even knife sharpener at our market, and somebody who makes great wood cutting boards. So a great variety for people who want to come out. And we always have live music at the market, as well as some fun activities for kids and food trucks. So it's a nice Sunday morning for you to come out, bring your dog, go for a walk, and visit us. Again, it was 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. every Sunday, May through October.
We're joined by Birmingham Shopping District Operations and Events Manager Jamie Brooke with us on the Megacast. So Jamie, as I mentioned earlier before the first question, this is the last week of the farmers market for the season. This coming Sunday on Halloween, you have your end of season celebration for the farmers market. Tell us what people can expect when they come out to this event, and anything special you have planned for this end of season celebration, given that it falls on Halloween.
It is actually exciting for us that it falls on Halloween. That doesn't happen very often. So we have invited kids to come, actually not just kids, anyone to come join us in costume this Sunday. Our vendors will be bringing candy and treats so people can trick or treat as they're walking through the market. We will have special live entertainment. We'll have straw bales piled up so kids can climb on the hay and straw and have some fun doing that. We also have pumpkins for the kids to decorate, so we'll be handing those out to kids with opportunity for them to put jack-o'-lantern type faces, stickers on the pumpkins while they're at the market. And of course, there's the shopping opportunity, and this is, like you said, the last Sunday, so it's a great time to stock up on those items that will fill your pantry and help you get through the off season for our market. And we'll have some food trucks if you want to make morning brunch out of it, or some lunch opportunities. Then, it'll be fun for everyone.
And then, Jamie, just after a short hiatus after the farmers market is done in December 3rd, actually, the Birmingham Winter Market begins. Tell us a little bit about the Winter Market and how is it similar, but also how is it different from the farmers market?
Sure. Our Birmingham Winter Market is an annual event that takes place in the center of downtown Birmingham. So instead of being on North Old Woodward, we're going to be in Shane Park. And this one is a 3-day event, similar to the farmers market. And then we have a wide variety of different types of vendors, but a little different. And this one's a little more focused on the holidays and holiday decorating items, as well as holiday gifts. lots of food items. And in addition to the vendors at the Winter Mart, we have lots of great activities. The Winter Mart goes December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The kickoff of the Winter Mart is on Friday, December 3rd. We start at 4 p.m., but at 6 p.m. we're doing the city's holiday tree lighting. And that's a 35-foot tree that has over 40,000 LED lights. It's going to be, Santa will be helping us to light that tree. So we invite everybody out to join us that evening. And we'll have live entertainment, lots of different school groups and bands will be playing throughout the 3 days. We have a kinder house, we have kids activities, different crafts and activities for the kids. On Sunday, we'll have live reindeer at the market. And throughout the whole event, we will have carriage rides, and Santa will be allowing visitors to come say hi at our Santa house. So lots of great things to do at the Winter Mart. I don't think I mentioned food trucks, but definitely food opportunities there as well.
We're joined by Jamie Brook, Operations and Events Manager at the Birmingham Shopping District, joining us today on the Megacast. Of course, this is the final week for the Birmingham Farmers Market, their end-of-season celebration on Halloween from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Their hours are Sundays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. That includes this weekend. More information on the Birmingham government website at bhamgov.org, bhamgov.org. And so we're still in the thick of things with the COVID-19 pandemic. That being said, what precautionary measures or requirements are in place for the farmers market and will be in place for the winter market?
We're fortunate that our events are all outdoors, so that allows us a little more flexibility with what we're able to do. This year, we're able to bring back a lot of the elements to our events that we weren't able to do last year, but we still ask people to distance and respect everyone's space, wear masks when they're in closer quarters. And Santa, for example, will still be doing visits in his doorway with kids distanced from him like we did last year. So instead of having kids come inside Santa house, where it's a little closer quarters, we'll still have an opportunity to visit with Santa, get your Christmas wishes heard, but do it in the safest way we see possible.
We're joined by Jamie Brook, Operations and Events Manager at the Birmingham Shopping District, joining us on the Megacast. And in between, of course, the farmers market, and in addition to the farmers market and the winter market, Jamie, what other things are happening in the Birmingham Shopping District? Any other events or any other special promotions that people should be on the lookout for going forward?
Sure. We start our holiday season with Small Business Saturday, which is the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is Saturday, November 27th. And we encourage people to shop local. We don't want to say shop small, meaning small purchases, but shop with small businesses and our local businesses, as opposed to some of the big box stores. This year is especially important to support our community members and the local businesses who've had a bit of a tough time through the COVID situation. So on Saturday, November 27th, we kick things off with what we call Santa Walk. Santa will be arriving to town at 9:30 Saturday morning, and we are inviting kids and families to come greet Santa and then walk around the block with him. We'll be stopping at some of our local retailers as we make our way around the block. And the families who join Santa for Santa Walk will be the first families who get to have their Santa visits in Santa House. Then Santa House will be open for that weekend and every weekend from that Thanksgiving weekend through Christmas Eve. And we'll have our horse-drawn carriage rides starting on Small Business Saturday. Small Business Saturday also has free parking all day in the structures. And we'll have hot chocolate being given away by Hazel Ravines in downtown on the corner of Maple and Old Woodward. So right in the heart of downtown. We also start our scavenger hunt, which is another fun holiday family activity. If you still not comfortable being in crowds, this is one that you can do on your mobile device and still get a tour around town, have some fun prizes as you do that, and have the opportunity to win a $250 Birmingham Bucks gift card for one winner each day of the scavenger hunt. So each Saturday and each Sunday through that holiday season, we'll be giving out a $250 Birmingham Bucks gift card.
We're joined by Jamie Brooks. She is the Operations and Events Manager for the Birmingham Shopping District. Learn more on bhamgov.org, bhamgov.org. And so we mentioned some of the COVID precautions that are in place at the farmers market and will be in place at the winter market. Across the shopping district, how has the COVID-19 situation altered those operations, what precautions generally are in place, or does it vary from business to business?
It certainly does vary business to business, but we saw great support for our restaurants, lots of people dining outside. With the weather changing a bit, we're seeing more people moving inside, but outdoor dining was a big part of what people did to support businesses, and a lot of takeout, which people may not have thought to take out from some of our downtown restaurants in the past, but that happened a lot more. And it was really nice to hear from some of the local merchants that they did see people shopping locally, even though some of those times the shopping trip might have been more of the call or the personal shopper with the Zoom shopping and people doing curbside. We're fortunate that more has come back a little more to normal. A lot of our merchants are still offering those additional services with the curbside pickup and the help with the personal shopping. So we encourage people to check out the different retailers and to visit each one and see what they have going on.
We're joined by joined by Jamie Brooke on the show from the Birmingham Shopping District. Big thank you to Jamie and to all of our guests for joining us on today's edition of the show. Dr. Varun Vohra from the Michigan Poison Center, who joined us earlier on in the program, as well as a couple of people from Oakland University, Professor Chris Kobus and Bianca Bryant from their STEM education team. Greg Kampe, head coach of Oakland University basketball, for joining us. Lydia Wileden, the U of M Ph.D. candidate and DMACS Research Associate as well. Big thank you as well to our crew, Calvin Brown, our studio producer, and our board operator, joining me in the studios each and every day here in West Bloomfield from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Brendan and Jared, our Zoom producers back at the Motown office, and Larry, our booking producer, who gets our guests prepared for the show each and every day, gets all the information to me so that we can do this show for you every single day with interesting guests and a wide variety of different topics to talk about. You can find all of our episodes online, civiccentertv.com. Just click on Megacast, and then you can also learn more about each and every one of our partnering television, radio, and other media outlets as well. So you can watch the show on demand and watch all the programming from great community television stations all throughout Oakland County and radio stations as well. Find more helpful and factual information on COVID-19 and precautions and vaccinations and such on our website from trusted resources at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. On Civic Center TV, The Splash is next. Steve Leto on My Michigan TV will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m.